Okay, so let us now look at the backup and restore methods. So we have a working Kubernetes cluster with a set of applications running. So let's first explore the setup. So let's see how many deployments exist. So currently we see that there are two applications. So there's a red and there's a blue application running. So there are two deployments. Now, what is the version of etcd running on the cluster? So check the etcd pod or process. So let's first see get pods. So we know that etcd runs in the kubesystem namespace. And we see that we have the etcd control plane, and this is the pod. And from this, we can also kind of guess that it's a static pod. And that's what we learned in the static pod section. So let's explore this in more detail. So let's do a describe pod system. And we see that we have the single container, which is etcd, and it has the image, which is etcd 3.5.1. So that's basically the answer to this question. So the version is 3.5.1. So let's select that. And at what address can you reach the etcd cluster from the control plane node? So most of those details are given here. So if you look at this container uses the etcd command with all of these options, right? And from this, we see that the URL, so the address that etcd listens to, is 127.0.0.1 and 2379. So there's 127.0.0.1 and 2379. So 2379 is the port that etcd listens on. There are many other options as well. So let's just select this for now. And where is the etcd server certificate file located? So if you look at this, we have the etcd cert file. So this is the etcd server certificate file. It's at etc kubernetes pki etcd server.cert. So that's this option right here. And where is the etcd CA certificate file located? So the CA certificate is the option that has the CA in it, so the trusted CA file. And that's at the etc kubernetes pki etcd ca.cert. So that's this one right here. And okay, so the next one is a task. So the master node in our cluster is planned for a regular maintenance reboot tonight. Now, while we do not anticipate anything to go wrong, we are required to take the necessary backups. So take a snapshot of the etcd database using the built-in snapshot functionality. So we're going to have to take a snapshot. And we've learned that we use the etcd-ctl utility. So let's first look at, let's understand this a little bit more. So here we know that we have the cert file. We have the data directory, which is set to var libetcd. We have the key file. So this is the private key file. We have the CA file. And we also have the URL that it's listening to. So we'll need all of that information for us to take a backup. So let me first take a look at the definition file that's used to create this pod. So we know that it's a static pod, and we've learned that the static pods are created from the etc kubernetes manifest directory. So here are the files that are used for creating this pod, and here the etcd is the one that's used. So let's look into that file. Okay, so if you look at this is a pod, and here are all the configurations for it. And this is just this is the stuff that we just saw. And I also want to take your attention to some of the relevant information here. If you look at this, we have volumes configured, and which is set to host path. So this means that this particular pod has these volumes, and these could be external volumes, but in this case, it says host path. So host path just refers to a path on the node that this particular pod is running on. So in this case, it's just a directory on the local on the host that this pod is running on, which happens to be the control plane node in this case. So there's a volume called etcd cert, which is created from this path on the host. So that's etcd Kubernetes PKI and etcd. And this basically is used as a volume mount here. So what this says is that this particular path on the host or on the control plane is mounted to this particular path within the container. So this is etcd Kubernetes PKI etcd. So it's the same kind of path, but this is on the control plane host, and this is within the etcd container. Similarly, we have the data path. So etcd data. This is where etcd stores all the data, and on the host it's at varlib etcd, and the same is mount to varlib etcd within the container. So if you look at the options that are passed here, you have the data directory, and the data directory is varlib etcd within the container. So that's how it kind of maps. So basically what I'm trying to say is, if you look at, let's get this. So if you look at this directory on the host, which is varlib etcd, and that's what's given here. So if you look at this directory on the host, you see this these files, or this directory and anything that are under it. These are the files that are created by etcd to store information, right? And similarly, if you look at this particular path on the local host, these are the files, the certificate files that are used by etcd, right? And these are automatically kind of mapped into the respective folders. In this case, they happen to be the same kind of path. They have the same name set, so or they have the same path set between this and this, so they are identical, but they don't really have to be. Okay, so knowing that information, let's try and perform the task of taking a backup. So we have the etcd snapshot command, but if you just run it directly as like this, it's going to tell that there's no help topic for snapshot. So basically etcd can't recognize this command. And you might come across this. You might come across this when you're working on a Kubernetes cluster, or when you're working with etcd-ctl, or maybe in the exam. And you should note that this happens because, not because your command is wrong. It happens because you've not set the etcd-ctl API version to 2. Sorry, to 3. Right. So this environment variable needs to be set before you run this command. If you don't want to specify this on each command, one thing you could do is just export in that environment that you're working on. You could just do an export etcd-ctl and API equals 3. And now you could just do etcd-ctl snapshot, right? So either you pass it in along at the beginning of each command, or you export it into the environment as an environment variable. Okay, so we have the etcd-ctl snapshot command, and we need to pass some information to it. So we're going to do a save. So we have to take a snapshot. So let's do a save. And then we need some of these parameters. So you have to pass in the CA certificate files for it to communicate with the endpoint. So we definitely need the endpoint. So we're going to have that first. And the endpoint, as we have seen here, is this. So copy that. And you don't really need this. Okay, so that's the first thing. Next, we need the CA cert. And if you go to the output of the file, we have this. Okay, and then we need the certificate, which happens to be this. And then we need the key, which happens to be this. So just remember that there are 3 files, certificate files that you should pass through. And then, so we've done the etcd snapshot save, and then we've specified the endpoint and the certificate files that are required. And the one thing that you should specify is the location of the backup. So store the backup file at location this. So we're going to pass that. Yeah, let's give it a shot. Okay, so snapshot saved at this location. Let's make sure that file is there. Okay, so that's the snapshot has been taken. So great. Let us now wait for the maintenance window to finish. So go get some sleep, and let's click OK to continue. Okay, so it's about 2 a.m. at midnight, and you get a call. Wake up. We have a conference call. After the reboot, the master nodes came back online, but none of our applications are accessible. So check the status of the applications on the cluster. What's wrong? So let's do a kubectl get deploy. See that the applications are not there. Check the pods. The ports are not there. Let's check services. We only have the built-in Kubernetes service, but the service for the applications are not there. So the deployments are not present, the services are not present, the pods are not present. So there's nothing seems to be there. So that's all of the above, not above actually, all of the options basically. Okay, so luckily we took a backup. So restore the original state of the cluster using the backup file. So let's do that next. So the restore option, what we're going to do is, so we have a file with the backup. Okay, now we could use the etcd restore command to restore a given file and restore the data to a directory on the local host. So what we're going to do is we're going to restore the data to another directory on the local host, and then we're going to go in to this etcd manifest file, and we're going to change. So we're going to reconfigure this to use the data, not from warlib etcd, but from that new path that we have restored the data to, right? So that's kind of the strategy that we're going to follow. So to restore etcd, again, remember if you have not set the export etcd API version, remember to pass that in. But in this case, since I've set it, I'm not going to put that in the beginning of this command. So etcd snapshot restore. Now, remember that when you're doing a snapshot, say when you're taking a snapshot, you're actually taking a snapshot by contacting the etcd server directly, and for that you need all the certificates. But now our goal is that we have the file already, and all we're going to do is we're going to restore this backup file to a folder, right? So that's all we're going to do. So we're going to specify a data directory where we want the backup to be restored to, and we'll create a new directory called warlib etcd from backup, for instance. So this is where the data is going to be restored to, and we just specify the location of the backup. So remember that we're not going to specify the endpoints or the certificate details, because this particular operation of restoring data from an etcd backup is not done by communicating with the etcd server. It's just a local kind of activity that we're running to restore it from this path and kind of extracting the data into a new directory that will be created. Okay, so the restore is complete. So let's check the data is in warlib etcd from backup. So yes, so that's the data. Now all we need to do is go back into Kubernetes manifest file, into the etcd YAML. And all we need to do here is go here and change the volume path, host path, and add etcd from backup here. So basically what's going to happen is, so as we know that any change on this file is going to recreate this pod, and when this pod is recreated, it's going to consider this as the data on the local host that has the data for the etcd server, and then it's going to mount this to the varlib etcd within the pod. So it doesn't matter if these are different, right? If this is changed, that's fine. This volume called etcd data is then going to be mounted to varlib etcd within this, right? So either you could just leave it like this, or you can change this and also change this. But if you change this, then you have to make sure that you go up to the data directory here and change this. So this line and this line should match all the time, but this and this need not this need not match, only because they are connected using this name here called etcd data. So this is what connects them, and if these values are different, that should be fine. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and when I save this, what's going to happen is I might lose access for a bit, because now the etcd server is going to go down for a short period of time, because I've changed the etcd manifest file. So the kubelet is now going to restart etcd. So it's going to shut down the running etcd pod. Then it's going to create a new pod based on the new information. So let's just give it a few minutes, and this can take a few minutes time. So let's just wait for it to restore and come back. Okay, so I just got an output, but this is kind of an old output, because as you can see, it still says etcd is 37 minutes old, which is not true. I expect it to be just a few seconds. Yep. So right now, as you can see, it's just up, and it's just been up for 14 seconds. So this is kind of the new etcd control plane. So let's do a watch and wait for this etcd control plane to go from a pending state to a running state. As you can see here, when the etcd control plane etcd pod is restarted, it also restarts the kube control manager and the scheduler. Let's take a look at the logs of the etcd control plane. Systems etcd control plane. Okay, so it's waiting. It's in a continual creating state. Let's take a look at it. Okay, as you can see, there are liveness and startup probes that are failing. So let's do one thing. Let's check the status again. So if it does not automatically go to a running state, it might need a restart. So let's just delete it. So it gets restarted. Check it again. Okay, so this time it's back and it's now in a running state. Let's see status of deployments now. We can see that the deployments are back. Pods are back. And the services as well are back. Okay, so that's the end of this lab.